Pioneer Teens is a free 2-week arts program for New York City teens that introduces them to the study of art through the universal language of symbols. It was a pleasure to welcome our 11th class of teens to ARIS this year. The journey began on the first day with Dr. Aurelie Athan's collage workshop. The teens were encouraged to leave the rational part of their minds behind and select images with which they intuitively connected. Once their collages were complete, the teens met individually with Dr. Athan to find the symbol that emerged from their artistic and aesthetic choices, both conscious and unconscious. These symbols then became the focus for the next 2 weeks. Through drawing and art making, a visit to a working artist's studio, research, and in-depth guided field trips to the city's great cultural institutions, the teens went deep into their symbols' many facets. By the end of the program, the teens had created their own pieces of art as a summation of the experience. On the last day of the program, the students presented their work and the research behind it at a celebratory exhibition and reception with family and friends. As always, it was moving to see the deep and sometimes unexpected connections that the teens made with their symbols and each other.
So my piece is called Forgotten Begotten. Whenever I walk from my Simbas to this place itself, I always go through the Church of Our Savior on Park Avenue, and it's very interesting to just look at it and see all of the skyscrapers right by it, and then just like an old church sitting there. And it's very interesting because I always see people walking in and out of the other skyscrapers, going to their work, getting their coffee, things like those, but I never see people going into the church, but I always see them sitting on the church. The church itself kind of has steps on it, so I see a lot of times people just sitting there. So I thought that was very interesting to use as a symbol. All throughout most cultures, even like the Judeo-Christians, Sodom and Gomorrah, or even like different Tamale cultures, they all had different ideals of like what a city means, what the destruction of the city itself meant. Mu, for example, which is kind of like this lost continent, or story of a lost continent, talks about this city that was so great and so grand, but over time they kind of lost their god, and then gods became angry at them, and so it all went underwater, which is kind of similar to like Sodom, where God got angry at the people, and then so he destroyed it. So that's why I tried to look at my piece, and I wanted to do mine kind of as before the destruction itself, because all these cities that were destroyed, they were very great cities. They were kind of even like economically flourishing. So I kind of just wanted to place that juxtaposition, and everything I did, I kind of stitched it all in place. It's a little uneven, but even if you look at like our skyscrapers, there's always like a weird tilt to it. I'm from Staten Island, so I'm used to seeing the silhouette of Manhattan everywhere, and it's not like a perfectly constructed silhouette. The one thing that I didn't actually stitch, but I rather pinned, was the church itself. I think I did that for a few different reasons. I think it's very interesting to see like the role, or to question the role of like the sacred or the idealized version in like our modern day society, because in here all of the skyscrapers are skyscraping. They have like a role in their life, so it's what's the role of the church itself, or maybe not even the church, or what's the role of like your own person's personal sacredness when you're trying to live in a functioning quote-unquote society. The quote underneath is, "The noise of battles is in the land." It's from, I believe it's Jeremiah, right before destruction of, and like a big battle scene. And so I thought that was very interesting, because I thought of it as kind of like a metaphorical battle. Right now we're in a very pivoting point where it's either we're gonna turn to very like ultra, not ultra, we're gonna turn either very more conservative, more traditionalistic, which some people like and some people want, or we're gonna become untraditional even more so, which also some people like that stance. So I wanted to point that like kind of division, that tension we're living in nowadays.
So my main work is called The Orphan's Journey. My symbol is an orphan, because the first the first day that we had this program, we talked to a person who told me that from my collage that I did, my symbol would be an orphan, and at first I thought it was a bit weird, but then it was just kind of interesting to explore. It shows the orphan, which is so the orphan could be shown as someone who perseveres, but is also as a kid you're very reliant, and in this piece I decided to make the orphan be symbolized by a young child, and just shows the the reliance on others, specifically their parents. I used graphite, only graphite for this one, and an eraser obviously. And then I have this piece, which is a little sculpture of an orphan that I just thought that I would I put holes in it to just show pieces missing. And then this was a alchemist sun that I did the first week, which was not my symbol, but I just thought it would be cool. I found it fascinating.
So there's a lot of overthinking that went on making this piece, because on the first day the symbol that I actually ended up with has to do with death and torture and knives. And I feel like even though I did a lot of research on those symbols itself, nothing really seemed that appealing to me. I feel like the exercises we did with the sculpture and the old pastel helped me much more with my ideas than the research on separate symbols itself had. I ended up with the idea of doing a cage and a girl inside, because I kind of always been intrigued by the idea of being trapped in a place and not having a way out. Not necessarily in the literal meaning, but it's also it could be a situation or problem. Not everyone has the privilege of finding a way out of their problem. Sometimes you have to be there for a certain period of time before you can make a way out, and oftentimes it can be frustrating, it can be numbing, it can be painful, and that's what I really wanted to portray in my painting a lot. When I think of the girls and the other symbolism itself, I used a lot of ideas combined. I read a lot, so I read fictional books and series, so some of them kind of went into the idea of making. I originally thought of the girl and the bird from the book Shatter Me, and I really wanted to picture Juliet's life. If you haven't read the book or the series itself, it's kind of a fictional world that takes place in a dystopian society, and the girl Juliet, she's kind of cursed with a lethal touch, whereas everyone she touches dies, because she has this power where it's it kind of sucks out all the energy out of that person and makes them paralyzed. So her entire life has been locked up in an asylum, and she's been through medical hospitals and juvenile court because of her cases, and she's been basically discarded by society for being a monster and a danger. So she spent her entire life until she was 17 in an asylum, and she would dream of these birds with white feathers and golden streaks, a crown on top, that kind of symbolized her, her dream to become free, to get out and like be a normal person. So I really wanted to depict that here because she was stuck. And the irony is that she had the super strength where she could even break into like ceilings and walls with her bare hands, but she was so into that victim mentality, like she couldn't get out and she was a monster and all this negative self-talk that she didn't even realize the power she had. I also added a lot of flowers and snakes. And when I did my research on both of them, snakes were often kind of like a symbol for evil and deceit, and it was often used in a lot of biblical painting that showed like the Satan and the temptations of evil. But I think like I also like to go with the opposite meanings of things, so I did like a lot of research even online, and I found out that that's not always the case. Sometimes snakes can be kind of like a false alarm, like you see it and you think of it as dangerous, but oftentimes it could be non-venomous, or it is often also in some of the paintings I saw are like protectors of temples. So I wanted to put snakes in that kind of meaning. And also with flowers, like oftentimes we think of nature and flower as a way of like, it shows beauty, it shows loyalty, it shows friendship and love and happiness, innocence, and it's like a lot of the flowers I have are also like kind of like symbolisms of innocence, but I also like to imagine the negative meaning behind it. For example, I have like the lily of the valley. It's like a good flower that kind of shows innocence, but it's also a poisonous flower that can be harmful. Same with the petunias, like they kind of also show resentment and anger. And the same thing with like the yellow roses and the orange lilies. They also have like the negative meaning of hatred and rejection and resentment. So I kind of like wanted to depict all the feelings that is there. And the story of Juliet is also why I left the cage open, because the idea was that she always had the power to break out, but she never did, because she always thought that she wasn't capable of anything but harming people.
So my symbol that I did was mythical creatures, and the title of my project is called The Harpy and the Hunter. So I feel like at the start my symbol was actually two different things. It was creatures and nudity, but further after I did a bit more research and like observation, I lowered it down to one symbol, which is being mythical creatures. And basically my project, which is just this, is just more like an allegory to how hunters will disguise themselves as different creatures to get what they want. And basically what this is referring to is that the supposed hunter had killed a minotaur, and then using its head to disguise itself as a mythical being, will kill the harpy next. And basically what I learned from like my research is that both harpies and minotaurs come from Greek mythology, and both of them were like created as to be a nuisance, which the harpies were created to basically just stop a person living a happy life, and they would torment that person until Theseus would have slain them. But the harpies, being afraid of metal, agreed not to harm the person anymore if Theseus had slain them. Before the Minotaur was created because a god had fell in love with a bull and produced the Minotaur. So they trapped the Minotaur in basically like a prison, and both were just created to be seen as just like not wanted. And that's really it.
So my project is called Nature in Bloom, and my symbol is nature. So originally my symbol was blue, but I didn't really feel like it aligned with like what I wanted to do here. So I kind of like generalized it more, and since blue is such like a large like thing, I decided to turn it into nature, because I feel like nature also has like a lot of elements that are like related to that. But I kind of like shifted away from blue and I made it more like colorful. So basically in my project I have a vase with flowers in it, but like the flowers are different mediums to symbolize how like nature is like imperfect and not like any two things is alike. And in the background is a composition of photos to kind of incorporate like a real life element, but also to show like how nature can be like symmetric, and there's like a lot of harmony in it, which is like symbolized by the grid kind of, which is like all cut out to the same dimensions. So I kind of was intrigued by nature just because of like the diversity of everything, and there's just like a lot to work with. And also this is my like clay that I made when I decided to do nature, and I didn't like purposely like make it similar to this, but I feel like it is, just because like there's a lot of different textures on it, and it's also like in like the same like grid format to kind of show like how everything has like harmony, and like even though nature is different, like it can also be similar in a lot of ways. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. So the title of my art piece is called Freedom, and I thought it would like match really well for what my symbol is. As you can see, my symbol is a bird. It's very straightforward, but I didn't think that my symbol was gonna be a bird in the beginning. I originally wanted my symbol to be a flower, but that didn't like work out well because I didn't really like have like a stronger connection to a flower being my symbol compared to like what I thought like compared to like what a bird would be as like a symbol. And birds can be like well known for like I guess like their hard-shelled eggs and like their really big wings, but with like a deeper meaning, I feel like they could be symbolized as free-spirited and have boundless freedom to it because of their wings. And I mean, I don't know, I like kind of added an aura, like a rainbow aura around the bird to like show like kind of a powerful like meaning to like the bird's wings, and that birds can like go anywhere with their wings and they could have like I said, boundless freedom to it. And this is also just like a clay flower that I made like last Wednesday. That is like still when I wanted my symbol to be a flower, but it's not, which is okay. But the materials that I used was like a white charcoal colored pencil, and then the blue and the green was for like, it was like a watercolored pencil, but I didn't like add any water on it. I just like used it kind of just like as like a regular colored pencil, and I feel like it was like better than a regular colored pencil because it shaded well more. I didn't think that the white colored pencil that I had was charcoal, so I was like wondering why it was so hard to blend in, which I thought that was like one of the challenges that I faced like making this project. But then later on I realized that it was white charcoal, and that's why it was hard to blend in. And then after that, I didn't really know what else to like do with my art piece. Like after I finished like doing this whole bird, drawing it. So then, just thought it would be a good idea to just add colorful aura around it. And yeah, that's it.